But it's so common, right? We evaluate the value of something by how difficult it was, and then wonder why we aren't willing to let it be easy. Well, because then it wouldn't have any value. It's like, actually, we're remarkably sane. Our premises are nuts, but within our premises, we're sane. Like, if you actually think that there's no value in something that comes easily, then it's totally sane to always find the hard way. But the premise is nuts, right? And yet it's common as muck, right? That's the norm. I can only charge for the things I don't like. Well, if that's the basic premise, your business will suck, I promise you. It has to, because otherwise you would have no business. Given that nutty premise, it's sane for your business to suck. But the premise is nuts. That's why I'm far more interested as a coach in premises than I am in what people do or don't do, because I know what they do or don't do makes perfect sense given the premise. Given what the thinking they have that looks real to them, nobody acts nutty. Like, it makes perfect sense. Look, if giant purple elephants are coming out of the walls at me, I'm going to cower in a corner and scream and wear a tinfoil hat or whatever else I think is going to stop them. That is not nuts. Now, it's not true that those things are happening outside of my head. So the premise is inaccurate. But within the premise, that behavior is as sane as it gets. There is no crazy behavior if you understand the premise. That's innocence. That is psychological innocence as far as it looks to me. That is why everything can be forgiven. Because literally everything makes perfect sense given the thinking people have that looks real to them. Given the world they've made up, that they don't know they've made up, that they're living inside of. Given the premises, the givens that they're operating inside of. And when it looks different, you'll do different. Guaranteed, you can't not. Now, doesn't mean for me that I think people shouldn't be punished for crimes. That wouldn't work either. It just means that the punishment isn't moral. It's not psychological. It's not shameful. That's not the point. It might be safer to treat things a certain way, but it's not bad and wrong. Like, what's bad and wrong about doing exactly what makes sense to do? Like, if that's bad and wrong, we're all 24/7. But that also doesn't mean we have to just sit there and, well, it's just the way it is, right? You know, we're just gonna, you know, the world looks this way to people, so there's always gonna be war, and the world looks this way to people, so we're never gonna take care of the environment, and the world looks this way to people, so, there'll always be greed, and there'll always be this, and there'll always be that. Maybe, but not if the world starts to look different to people. Not if consciousness keeps expanding for everyone. Not if the elevator keeps going up, because then different things look real. And then different things are obvious and sane. And then suddenly you have a more and more workable planet. So to me, it's incredibly hopeful. Can we change the world? Absolutely. Just mostly not the way we're trying to. Because we're trying to take people who are absolutely convinced that the world is one way and showing them a way that would make perfect sense to act if the world was a different way. That's not a great setup. Like, I wouldn't bet on that. If you're really, 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 really forceful in your personality, or if you have a lot of power or influence or whatever, you can kind of move the needle in a direction. But the only thing that really changes the game is consciousness. And that'll change the game every time. It can't not. It's just not always predictable exactly how, but it is predictable overall. I mean, if I see that you and I are the same, and that there is nothing that you can take from me, I'm probably not going to murder you in your sleep. Right? Like do you know what I mean? It's like, that's just a weird place to go from that starting point. But if I think that she is in control of my happiness, right? We good? Can I keep going here? I know I've seen fear in the face here, but I just, this is a concept that we're constructing and then we'll deconstruct, okay? Right? So, if I think she is in control of my happiness and she keeps taking it away and denying it to me, well, at some point, that's not okay. And I'm going to do something about it. Now, depending on how I've been raised, my unconscious conditioning, that will determine what I do, what I'm inclined to do about it. Well, yeah, when somebody's doing that, you got to fight them. Or when somebody's doing that, you got to get away from them. Or when somebody's doing that, you got to be really, really suck up to them so that you can get them to give you the happiness that they control. Like, that will vary which response to that you have. But as long as the premise looks solid, well, then any of those behaviors is incredibly sane. But the premise is nutty because she has no control over my happiness. And so it's a moot point. And the premise is even nuttier because she's me and I'm her. Like, unless, you know what, I'm trying to think of, there's a Monty Python sketch, I can't remember which one it is, where the guy is wrestling himself, right? And he gets himself in a chokehold and he's throwing himself all over the mat. Like, that would be me hurting Pam. That would be that nutty. We don't do that. Right? But when it looks to me like, no, this is it, well then, yeah, we get real nutty, but it's completely safe.